Hello there and welcome. So this video is going to be about the U-turn. So the U-turn is trained as part of your CBT and is done off-road, and then latterly you will do some U-turns out on a live road. The U-turn is also part of your Module 1 test, and that is done at the off-road motorcycle manoeuvring area at the test centre. So to do a U-turn successfully, you need to be competent in slow speed control, and you need to have a good understanding of rear observations. I've already covered these subjects in some detail in previous videos, so if you need to refer back to those, please do so. I'm talking specifically about the U-turn today, as over the years I've noticed students sometimes get very nervous about this manoeuvre, and there are some common errors that they make. So let's look at those now and try and avoid them so that the U-turn can be a relatively easy thing to do. So one of the first problems with not doing a U-turn successfully is not looking where you want to go. So you should make sure that your head and eyes are turned before the machine and you look all the way through the turn. I sometimes say, imagine someone is standing in the verge and you're looking at them or even right through them. Get your head and eyes up and look all the way through the turn. You should never look at the curb, but you need to rely more on your peripheral vision and spatial awareness. So another issue that often happens with the U-turn is having almost completed the U-turn, the student shuts the throttle and doesn't allow the bike to run along the full length of the curb, and that early stopping sometimes unsettles the bike. Another error that we often see when doing a U-turn is using the front brake. We shouldn't be using the front brake. It can really upset the balance of the bike. That's why we say don't involve front brakes in slow speed manoeuvres. It's too powerful, and if you're not good with it, that harshness will cause you a problem. Another problem with the U-turn is the reluctance to lean the bike. The faster you go, the more you must lean to achieve the same radius. So if you wish to go very, very, very slowly and don't like leaning the bike, you can do a U-turn, but it's actually quite hard. And whilst the U-turn is a slow speed control manoeuvre, a little bit of momentum is useful, especially on a live road, because you don't want to be across the two lanes for any longer than you need to be. So if you are reluctant to lean, you go too fast, you don't look where you want to go, you are very likely to run wide. That results in you hitting the curb or going over the white line on your test and failing. The way to correct it is to lean in a bit more and or use a little bit of more rear brake, and that will help turn the bike in and slow it down a fraction. So one problem I will see with lifesavers on U-turns, other than the fact that some people forget them completely, is they will do them as they start to turn, which is incorrect. And I will also see lifesavers done and then straight into the turn. Another big issue with the U-turn is rushing, getting everything all confused, not looking where to go, and then the clutch goes wrong, the power goes wrong, and everything falls apart, and very often we start looking in the wrong place. So for example, for the turn I start to look, but I actually look over there. I then run wide, I look down, I panic, and it's all gone wrong. We don't want that. So in fact the U-turn can be a very straightforward manoeuvre if we take our time and think about what we're doing. So for the purposes of training and testing, it is a curb-to-curb manoeuvre. So when we stop, we want to be stopped as close to the curb as is safe. We do not want to be stopped out in the middle of the road. And on your Module 1, if you stop out wide, the examiner will say, this is a live road, you've stopped, you're interfering with oncoming traffic, and it could cause you to fail your test if you're too far out. Similarly, we don't want to be so tight on the curb that we run the risk of brushing our tyres and wheels on the curb, because that could cause an upset of the balance of the bike and cause you to come off. So in considering the U-turn then, The first thing is to get yourself ready. Get yourself in the safety position, covering the rear brake, but not using it unless you're on a hill, of course. Then taking effective, appropriate rear observations. I like my students to check the pavement side and also to have a very good look to the right hand side to make sure it's safe. When your observations are sufficient and you know it's safe to move away, we're then going to do slow speed control, get control of the bike. We then put in a lifesaver, we look where we want to go, and we complete the turn safely. So having taken effective rear observations, we then ride the bike parallel to the curb under slow speed control. We use a right lifesaver, we look where we want to go, and then we go into the turn. To stop, all we need to do is to bring the bike straight and stop gently on the rear brake only. So we can break this down very easily into numbers, and if we just do one thing at a time, it'll be easy. So number 1, effective rear observations. Number 2, ride a straight line. Number 3, do a lifesaver. Number 4, look where you want to go. Number 5, do the turn. Number 6, stop gently. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you do all of those things in sequence, it will work. Now, one area that causes a lot of issues is the lifesaver before we turn. So it is quite feasible for an experienced rider to take effective rear observations and turn the bike round immediately. So if you do that, your initial rear observations are perfectly sufficient to do a U-turn. Now, most of you will know, or if you're brand new, you won't until you start your training, we require you to do an additional lifesaver before you turn. And the reason for that is the further you travel along the curb, the more likelihood is a vehicle coming up on your offside and causing you a problem, and that's what the lifesaver's there for. It's to prevent you from turning into the path of an oncoming vehicle prior to the turn. So the longer the time period from your initial rear observations to the point of your turn, the more important that lifesaver is. And the reason that we use the long U-turn for new riders is because it gives them time to get the slow speed control correct and get the balance that they need. Now, we very often see the issue that the lifesaver goes in and the bike starts to turn simultaneously. That must not happen. The lifesaver must be done separately before the bike even starts to turn. The idea is that we do the lifesaver so that we can stop and abandon the U-turn if we need to. So we take effective rear observations, we move alongside of the curb, and then we go, is it safe to turn? No. Okay, better stop then. You can't do that if you've started to turn the bike, because what will happen is you'll put the lifesaver in and you'll go, oh, grab the front brake, and then the bike will go over, quite potentially. The lifesaver must be done in its entirety before you consider turning. If you get all these factors right and you practice and practice and practice, it will work every time. If you're particularly nervous about the U-turn, do wide U-turns to start with, just to get the skill set. You can then go on to make the U-turn more narrow as time goes by. So what you may like to do, and what your instructor may like to do with you, once you've got that skill set on wide turns, is to just say, right, let's see how tight I can turn. And the more you lean the bike, the tighter the turn will be. And by using a few more revs, that will give you the encouragement that the bike isn't going to fall over on you. And if you look at the slow speed control video I've done, that will show you how to use those techniques. So having done the lifesaver, remember the look to turn is the look to turn the bike. That look to turn is completely separate for the lifesaver, and the two should never be blurred. Don't rush a lifesaver. Don't rush your U-turns. Take your time. Practice. And with practice, they will work. And just remember, the slower you go on the U-turn, potentially, the harder it is. So I hope this video has been useful to you. Keep practicing those U-turns, and whether it's for your CBT, your test, or even if you've passed your test, keep at it. You will improve. So until next time, ride safe and take care.